And what I wish I knew at 13 was that not all bedtime stories have happy endings. Some stories, the ones that linger in the dark corners of our minds, are far from the fairy tales we grew up with. They are the tales that keep us awake at night, staring into the shadows, wondering what might be lurking just out of sight. These are the stories that remind us of the fragility of life and the darkness that can exist in the world. One such story is the chilling account of the Hinterkaifeck murders. Some, like the Hinterkaifeck murders, leave you sleepless. The Hinterkaifeck murders are not just a tale of horror, they are a grim reminder of the unknown dangers that can lurk in the most unexpected places. This story takes us back to a time when the world was simpler, yet the darkness was just as profound. It is a story that has haunted the minds of many for nearly a century. A story that remains unsolved and continues to baffle even the most seasoned investigators. Hinterkaifeck, a remote farmhouse in Germany, was the last place anyone expected to become the scene of one of history's most gruesome unsolved murders. Nestled in the Bavarian countryside, the farmhouse was isolated, surrounded by dense forests and open fields. It was a place where one could easily feel cut off from the rest of the world, a place where the silence was only broken by the sounds of nature. But in March 1922, this tranquil setting became the backdrop for a nightmare that would leave an indelible mark on history. In March 1922, the Gruber family, Andreas, his wife Cäzilia, their daughter Viktoria, and her 2 children were all brutally killed. The Grubers were a typical rural family, hardworking and close-knit. Andreas, the patriarch, was known to be a stern man, while his wife Cäzilia was the heart of the household. Their daughter Viktoria was a widow, living with her parents along with her 2 young children, Cäzilia and Joseph. They were a family like any other, living a simple life until the night of March 31st, 1922, when their lives were violently cut short. On the night of March 31st, neighbors found the family bludgeoned to death with a pickaxe. The discovery was made by concerned neighbors who had not seen the family for several days. When they entered the farmhouse, they were met with a scene of unimaginable horror. The bodies of Andreas, Cäzilia, Viktoria, and the 2 children were found in various parts of the house, all having suffered brutal blows to the head. The weapon used was a pickaxe, a tool that was commonly found on farms but had now become an instrument of death. But the horror didn't start there. The events leading up to the murders were just as chilling. In the days before the murders, Andreas Gruber had reported hearing strange noises coming from the attic. He had also noticed footprints in the snow leading to the house, but none leading away. These eerie occurrences had left the family on edge, but they had no idea that they were being watched by someone with sinister intentions. Andreas Gruber had reported hearing strange noises and seeing footprints in the snow leading to his house, but none leading away. These footprints were a clear sign that someone had been lurking around the property, watching the family. Despite these unsettling signs, the Grubers tried to go about their daily lives, hoping that the strange occurrences would stop. But the sense of unease continued to grow, and the family could not shake the feeling that they were being watched. He found an abandoned newspaper and a mysterious key that didn't belong to him. The newspaper was not one that the family subscribed to, and the key did not fit any of the locks in the house. These discoveries only added to the growing sense of dread. It was as if someone was playing a twisted game with the family, leaving behind clues to their presence but remaining just out of sight. The Grubers were living in a state of constant fear, not knowing when or if the intruder would strike. The crime scene was a nightmare, the family slaughtered in their own home, while the killer seemed to make themselves comfortable, eating their food and drinking their milk. The investigators who arrived at the scene were shocked by what they found. The killer had not only taken the lives of the Gruber family, but had also stayed in the house for several days after the murders. They had eaten the family's food, slept in their beds, and even tended to the livestock. It was as if the killer had taken over the lives of the Grubers, living in their home as if nothing had happened. Suspicion fell on several people, including a former employee and a mysterious stranger seen around the area. The investigators interviewed numerous people, trying to piece together the events leading up to the murders. One of the main suspects was a former farmhand who had worked for the Grubers and had a grudge against Andreas. Another suspect was a mysterious stranger who had been seen in the area around the time of the murders. Despite these leads, the investigators were unable to find enough evidence to charge anyone with the crime. However, no one was ever charged. The case quickly became one of the most frustrating and baffling in German history. The lack of concrete evidence and the remote location of the farmhouse made it difficult for the investigators to make any headway. The case eventually went cold, and the Hinterkaifeck murders became one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in history. The investigation yielded few clues, leaving the murders shrouded in mystery. Despite the best efforts of the investigators, the case remained unsolved. The lack of witnesses and the remote location of the farmhouse made it difficult to gather any substantial evidence. The case files were filled with dead ends and unanswered questions, leaving the investigators frustrated and the families of the victims without closure. Hinterkaifeck soon became infamous in German folklore. The gruesome nature of the murders and the eerie events leading up to them captured the imagination of the public. The story of the Hinterkaifeck murders was passed down through generations, becoming a part of local folklore. It was a tale that was told around campfires and in hushed whispers, a reminder of the darkness that can exist in the most unexpected places. The combination of brutal killings and eerie premonitions created a tale that still sends chills down the spine. The story of the Hinterkaifeck murders is one that continues to haunt those who hear it. The combination of the brutal nature of the killings and the eerie events leading up to them creates a sense of unease that is hard to shake. It is a story that reminds us of the fragility of life and the darkness that can exist in the world. The farmhouse was eventually abandoned, crumbling into ruin, adding to the dread that surrounds this tragic story. The once thriving farmhouse became a symbol of the tragedy that had occurred there. It was left to decay, a haunting reminder of the lives that were lost. The overgrown property and crumbling buildings added to the eerie atmosphere, making it a place that few dared to visit. Real horror is more unsettling than fiction because it's rooted in reality. The story of the Hinterkaifeck murders is a reminder that the most terrifying tales are the ones that are true. The fact that these events actually happened makes them all the more chilling. It is a story that stays with you, a reminder of the darkness that can exist in the world, and the Hinterkaifeck murders remain one of the most haunting true crime stories ever told. The story of the Hinterkaifeck murders is one that continues to captivate and terrify those who hear it. It's a tale of mystery, horror, and the unknown, a story that remains unsolved and continues to haunt the minds of many. The Hinterkaifeck murders are a reminder of the darkness that can exist in the world, a story that will continue to be told for generations to come.